Welcome to Modern Homestead, Alaska. I'm Jessica, and I have been sitting with some pretty major health updates that I have decided to actually share with you guys. And I haven't done this in quite a long time, but I know many of you are curious and have been praying and hoping for the best for me, and I thought I would share some great news with you today. And on top of that, it is fall, and I really want to make an incredible meal for my family. I'm just inspired by the flavors of the season, and I thought I would share that with you as well today. So won't you join me? Our chickens are still producing like crazy. So put away all of these eggs I just washed, and we'll get right into it. I'm gonna preheat the oven to 375 for the dessert we're gonna make, but before I get that in, I need a pumpkin for later. We are gonna make like a pumpkin whipped ricotta to go on top of the pasta. It just sounds really, really good. And so I'm going to take a fresh pumpkin and we're gonna turn this into pumpkin puree, which I don't know if you know, you can do pumpkin. Let's get a serrated knife. You can bake your own pumpkins instead of just always using the canned store-bought pumpkin. And we grew a ton of baking pumpkins this year. So I'm gonna take the top off, cut it in half. And just like this, I'm gonna set it on a baking sheet. I'm gonna put a little bit of water in there so that it steams. I'll pull the seeds out and stuff after it is baked for a while. And I know that it's done when I can touch the pumpkin and it starts to collapse down on itself. No salt, nothing else needed. And then into the oven. And then we will make the dessert while this cooks off. For dessert, we're gonna be making a caramel apple crumble bar. I just grabbed a little bit of parchment, got it wet, and I want to be able to lift the bars out of the 13 by 9. So by getting that in all the cracks and crevices, I'm gonna get to work on the crust, which is also the crumble. So in our bowl, we're going to do 1 cup of melted butter. I just threw that in the microwave real quick. And then 1.5 cups of sugar. As well as a splash or a teaspoon of vanilla. And then 1/2 teaspoon of salt goes in. We're gonna bring this together before we add the flour in order to make a crumble crust. And while I bring that together, I just wanna remind you, a couple of, it'd be 2 years ago at least by now, that I gave kind of a health update. I had made that video private because of it being just really chaotic and very personal and things like that. And I might go ahead and release it in order for people to go back and watch if they are curious. But I shared my health journey of battling hepatitis C, steroid-induced Cushing's, and then the steroids messed with my heart and, you know, all of that. And I had gotten some really, really bad test results, and I was very emotional and very sad because I had been through so much already. I just didn't want to keep going through these things, but it was the road that we had to travel in front of us. And I recently went to the doctor and got some new test results, some blood work, and that is kind of what I wanted to share as an update in this video together. So real quick though, we need to move on, and 2.5 cups of flour. And we didn't want to put this in the mixer because we're not looking to like make like a cake batter. We want to make like a crumble crust out of it. So look at how that's coming together. So anyway, recently well, not even recently. In January, I started working on my weight again, and I lost, about 20 pounds pretty quickly. I've kept most of that off, but it's been, up and down a roller coaster, as any journey might be. And I had been inspired by watching people just losing huge amounts of weight. I felt insecure. I felt like, how come I can't? I should be doing these things, whatever crazy thoughts were running through my head. And I decided to go to the doctor and talk about maybe some weight loss medication in order to make it a little bit simpler on me to do that. The GLP-1s are real popular. There's some other like pills and things like that. And so I just thought, let's see if I could get some help with those things. So with this, which it seems like it's not very crumbly, so I'm gonna reserve a good portion of it. The rest we're gonna put in the bottom. I'm gonna add flour until it is a little bit more crumbly. We'll see what it does. But we're gonna put this in the bottom of the pan before we add the apples. So for the apples, it said like 3 large apples. I have these really small ones, but we need enough to cover the crust. So I'll probably start with at least 6 of them. And maybe we'll even need a few more after that. So really quick, we're gonna peel and then slice the apples. So when I went to the doctor to talk about the medication, she just said, it's been a couple of years, we haven't done blood work, let's do some blood work, let's talk about what you've been doing, let's see if there's something that can change or whatever. But she just didn't want to throw me on medication. And I said, that's fine, because I had heed and hawed. Like, Aaron is not enthusiastic about me going on some sort of medication to lose weight. And he definitely doesn't want me on something that is going to be a lifelong medication. All of that, but you get insecure and you go and look at things. So I went in, we did blood work, and she said, I want you to keep a food log for the next month. We'll come in, we'll see what your body does and so on, and we'll just go from there. But because I had to have so many bad liver and kidney tests in the past, and I was pre-diabetic, she really thought going in that they would be able to, medically help me lose some of the weight. So we did all of that. We kept a food journal. We went in, and in keeping the food journal alone and paying attention to what I was doing, I lost 8 pounds over 1 month. On top of that, so the blood draw was pre the food journal and losing the 8 pounds, and it came back for the first time since I was diagnosed with hepatitis. So it has got to be, we're thinking like 10 years or so since the last time I had normal or good blood test. And my blood test came back this time literally as I'm no longer pre-diabetic. I don't have any glucose issues. I don't have any blood sugar issues. I don't have any kidney issues. I don't have anything going on with my liver. I don't have anything going on for the first time. And taking these years, doing rounds of Whole30 and just attempting to heal my body, it actually did that. And then because I lost 8 pounds by paying attention to what I was eating, I don't qualify don't qualify for weight loss medication because my body can do it on its own. I'm not pre-diabetic, so my insurance would not cover it. There's no reason your insurance would pay for that just because you want to look thinner. And so my doctor and I had the conversation of some people are just bigger and they are perfectly healthy being that size. Yes, I still have some weight to take off. I'm not perfectly healthy weight-wise, and weight does a lot to your body as far as like joints and bones and all of that, but I'm healthy. And that is like a literal praise God. I pressed into, you know, choosing health over my appearance, what I looked like, all of that. And I have gotten to the point where I, at the gym, can do a 5K on the treadmill with a 10-pound weighted vest, not even break a sweat. And although it's slow going, if I actually quitting on myself and pay attention to what I'm eating and what I'm doing, and weigh and measure my food and get the right proteins and do the things that work for my body, there isn't a reason that I can't, you know, curb some of the weight and lose some of the weight. So that's just my personal journey and what I'm going through. I wanted to share it because I have so many subscribers that have been around for a very long time that watched me truly suffer through some of the tests and the health and the outcomes and all of that. And I knew that you guys would care to know what was going on with me. And so that's it. For the first time in so many years, it makes me emotional. You know what I mean? It is this freedom that I didn't expect to feel. You go in and you hope for a good test and everything to come out right, and when it actually occurs, like, it's a bit more mind-blowing than I thought it would be. So I'm super happy, super content, and just working hard. Aaron and Cody go to the gym with me sometimes. They're supporting the journey as we go, and my goals are not a size or a weight. My goals are, I want to hike up these big hills with neoprene waders on without sounding like a freight train, breathing like I'm dying when I get to the top of the hill. I just want to be healthier. And then Cody's biggest joke, and then I'll close this off, is she looks around the gym and we're talking about, I'm doing this back exercise because my low back hurts when I'm in the garden and I'm at a certain angle, and I'm like, oh, I need to really work on these muscles that hurt when I'm gardening. And she goes, I doubt anyone else in this gym is literally in here in order to work on their gardening muscles, but that is my goal. That is my life. That is exactly where I'm at with things, and I'm okay with being the only one in the gym probably working on how their gardening body is coming along. But those are the things that are important to me. They're what keep me healthy. They're what make me happy and bring peace and joy to my life. And they're the things that I want to do. I want to hunt. I want to fish. I want to garden. I want to go out there and forage. I want to have this outdoor life regardless of age and size. And if I can build strength in doing that, I'm going to do that. So with that, let me dice up these and then we'll season them. All right, we're gonna add the apples to a bowl, and we're gonna spice them individually because if you notice, the crust didn't have any cinnamon or anything like the holiday spices in it. So apples, we're gonna do a little bit of cinnamon and some fresh ground nutmeg. Just gives it that warm, cozy fall bite. That should be enough. And it didn't call for like lemon or anything. I've never tried this recipe before, but it looked really good and it seemed simple, and the ingredients seemed like something that I have done without. Okay. I think for how thin the crust layer is, a thin layer of apples is perfect. So I learned something about caramel sauce, even though it just calls for half of a cup of caramel sauce to go over the apples. I learned something from a recipe that I make every single year, and then what is left will be drizzled over the top without adding anything to it. But what I learned was if you add a little bit of flour to the caramel sauce, it makes it stay as opposed to just kind of melting and running off. So I'm just gonna add a tablespoon of flour, even though the recipe doesn't call for it, to the caramel, because I want it to stay on top of the apples. I don't want it to become something else. It's supposed to be kind of its own part of the recipe. Let's drizzle that over the apples. So as this kind of sat over there and absorbed the butter, it actually became crumbly. So I'm not going to add any more flour, but I was very nervous in the beginning, but I want to break it up. I'm gonna dust the top with a little bit of cinnamon. It does not call for this, but it just seems right to me. This is gonna go in a 375-degree oven for about 45 minutes. And I'm gonna go ahead, use my little bucket and grab some fresh sage and some fresh rosemary. I have so much thyme and dry sage going on in the kitchen. It is beautiful, but I finally got a frost today, and so I'm gonna grab those things really quick before we start on the bread. This is the rosemary from one plant, and then this I just grabbed a little bit of what is left. There was only one plant I hadn't harvested of sage. Use a plate. I'm gonna grab off here what I need for the bread. We're going to make just a beautiful bread, and then the rest of this I am going to string up and get hung up. It's very, very strong, so we don't need a lot. So I'm just going to make a super simple yeast crusty loaf because one of them I want to turn part of it into croutons for the soup, and then the other one we will just serve with dinner. For each one I need 3 cups of all-purpose flour, and you just mix all of it into one bowl. Even though it's no knead, I still mix it in the mixing bowl because that's just simple. So I need a total of 6 cups of flour for what I am doing today. To that, I keep my yeast in the freezer. I need 2 heaping teaspoons of yeast per deal. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then salt. 1 teaspoon per bread, so 2 teaspoons. So easy. 3 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of yeast, 1 teaspoon of salt, and between a cup to a cup and a half of very warm water. We're activating the yeast by not even blooming it, but we're gonna activate it in the bread. You can use a dough hook or your mixer blade. It doesn't actually matter. Dough hook, I think, works just fine. Give that a little swirl really quick. To that fresh rosemary, I've already pulled all this thyme and it's just drying down in my kitchen. I'm gonna add some thyme. To the herbs, I've got a couple of cloves, little tiny cloves of fresh garlic. Into the bread. The bread is not quite come together, so we'll do that now. And now that the bread is like that, it's still really sticky, but it formed into a ball. We're gonna cover this with a towel and let it set. There is something incredibly satisfying about that because I grew all of those herbs myself. I just absolutely love that wall. You know the pumpkin is ready when I can actually see that the skin is separating from the flesh, and I poked it here and it didn't. It's done. I just can't touch it yet. So we're gonna let it completely cool. Well, I can touch it a little, but there's no way I can scrape that up. So the topping is firm, golden brown, and the apples are cooked. I'm all just bubbling. Beautiful. We need to preheat some Dutch ovens. So they're just, the Dutch has been with the lid on, and actually is wrong on the temp. The oven needs to be at 450. So the bread is beautiful, it's risen, it's bubbly. We're gonna divide it right here. Close enough. And then we're gonna cover these and let them sit for about 15 minutes while the pans preheat. I have a timer set for the bread. I grabbed a basket. We're gonna run out and grab some tomatoes from the greenhouse. It has a little heater in there right now, and I should have a few very, very ripe tomatoes. And if that's the case, come on boys, let's go to the greenhouse. I think I'm gonna add it to the vegetables. All right, we have a few. It's ripe. Look at that. That's just one little pass through. The recipe also calls for fresh parsley. And guess what I have a giant pile of right here? This is giant, literally in the name, parsley. That's more than enough. The pots are super hot. They even change color, and all of that is just heat. And then straight in with the bread. You can cut it, you can score it. I don't ever do that because it just breaks on its own. Lid on, next one. Now I know my oven, and I made this bread so many times that from 450, I'm gonna turn mine down to 400. And it's gonna go for 30 minutes with the lid on and then 15 minutes with the lid off to brown it, and it's gonna break apart and be all crusty on the outside and yummy on the inside. We're gonna go ahead and get started on the pasta. It is a butternut squash and tortellini with some bacon and some onion, garlic, a couple of other things. Maybe there's no onion in it. However, we're gonna get started because it gets baked off in order to melt all the cheeses and things like that. So I can kind of pre-cook it a little bit and just have it waiting for when everyone gets here. And then I can just pop it in the oven, let it heat through, and we will have dinner. So the first thing is I need a few slices of bacon. So I'm gonna go ahead and trim these. I'm gonna get the water going for the tortellini. There. Throw a little salt in that. And while all that's going, I am going to prepare the butternut squash. I'm gonna peel and then dice the butternut squash. When I'm deciding how big to cut the pieces, I want them roughly the same size as the tortellini, maybe a little bit smaller, but I don't want them disappearing into the pasta bake, but I also don't want them to be so big that it's overwhelming to take a bite of it. I'm not 100% sure what I was thinking. They're supposed to be cheese tortellinis, and I went ahead and grabbed what I thought was tortellinis. They were side by side, and I thought, oh, roasted garlic and chicken. They had a higher protein count. I was like, oh, that'll work. They're raviolis. So apparently we are having it as a ravioli meal. That's okay. The bacon is nice and crisp, and to that, I'm gonna throw a bunch of this sage just to toast up. Okay, we're gonna take the bacon and the sage out of this pan and let it sit to the side. In the pan, we're going to add our squash. And it's more squash than what the recipe calls for, and looking at how many raviolis I have. And so I'm gonna save the rest of it for the vegetable soup we're about to make. So to this, I wanna salt it. And I'm gonna do some white pepper. So I'm actually just gonna move them into the dish, the baking dish that we're gonna use. To the butternut squash while it's cooking, I'm just gonna warm it up a little bit with some nutmeg. I'll retrieve that one later. Okay. Nice dusting. All right, let's pull the lids off the bread. Oh, gorgeous. Look at that. To the beautiful ravioli, we are gonna put the butternut squash. We're gonna mix it all together though. Oh. We're also gonna put the bacon and the sage. We're gonna put some Parmesan. My daughter bought this. I have some that we can freshly grate, but I thought, you know what? I'm gonna use what is open. So, using, a little bit of the pasta water to move it all around. Try not to break everything. I'm gonna go ahead and try it and see. Salt, pepper, all the things. I get the sage, I get the bacon. The butternut squash has got that sweet note in the back, and the raviolis are just totally fine with that. Perfect. We're now going to cover this with mozzarella and let it sit. So the recipe calls for 8 ounces of mozzarella, but I'm going to give it a generous sprinkle because we're going to do a pumpkin ricotta with this. And so I'm just going to sprinkle it with a good amount of mozzarella, but I looked back, it was supposed to be a 1/4 cup of parm, and I probably put a half or more in here. So we'll just sprinkle it. I don't think it needs more cheese after having tasted it, but if you weren't gonna do the pumpkin ricotta, what the heck, use the whole 8 ounces. Okay, the bread should be done. Oh, it's beautiful. Oh, drop, that was hot. We are gonna let these cool completely. If you let them cool in the pans, the bottoms become even harder than what they are. So we have learned to just immediately pull them out of the pan. Don't worry about it. I'm gonna let these cool down. I'm gonna clean up the kitchen before I make the soup. We are gonna make a roasted vegetable soup. And after it roasts and we get all of the goodness out of the vegetables and the work of the oven, we're then gonna put it in the pan and add some broth. The recipe that I kind of loosely am using called for vegetable broth. So this would be a great thing if you have some vegetarians or anything like that coming over for dinner. And of course, this would be fantastic as just a meal with some crusty bread. You could add some beans, something like that to it in order to make it really, really hearty. But soups are very seldom, I think, an actual recipe. So we have the butternut squash there. I just peeled up a potato, so the potato's gonna add some thickness and some heartiness to the soup. But I think soups are more of a method as opposed to a recipe most of the time. So see something that kind of inspires me and make a soup based off that inspiration. So we want to just put the beautiful vegetables. I'm trying to go through these potatoes. I have not harvested my potatoes yet, and you guys, they're like popping out of the ground. We have to get to that this week. We have done the rest of the garden, so the vast majority of what will be going in today we actually grew, but there's a few other things that I think will be really good. Peppers are really, really good roasted. So we're gonna throw red pepper on there. And you can just chunk them up however you want, just so that they roast kind of at the same time. Because it's gonna be pureed, I guess you could overcook it, but you can't really overcook it. This is celery from my garden. A lot of celery I just freeze, but some of them I like for fresh eating. Probably not that much. Celery has a stronger flavor than what you think. Let's see if I can see. Okay. Here you go. I might lose my head, but I might also lose the cutting board. So some clean celery straight from the garden. Did you hear that crunch? Seriously? And it. So these are onions. We grew these onions. I just rinsed them, brought them in from the onions that are curing outside. And so I'm just gonna toss them on. I have some fresh garlic. I went ahead and rinsed these because they had dirt on them. I'm like, I'm gonna use mostly the whole head anyway. So, this is this year's garlic harvest. They aren't quite cured, so they're really easy to peel. But we needed them, so let's use them. They taste the same. They're just really strong. They're just not storage ready yet. I have a bunch of carrots that I washed up. I grew all of these as well. Look at that little spindly thing. So cute. The last of the zucchinis, they are not looking great, but they are gonna roast up just fine. A little bit of an ugly spot. Before I roast them off, I have a little, this is avocado oil, but you could use olive oil or grapeseed, whatever you use. So a little bit of oil, and we'll use our hands to stir. So we'll get everything on it. This for salt, I'm using garlic scape salt. This came from our garlic scapes. I have more, but I finally used through a whole jar. Black pepper. Rosemary that we pulled today, just a little, not aggressive. And then apparently when I cut the rosemary, there's a thyme plant in the middle of the rosemary plant. And so this thyme came with it. So we'll use that up. Okay. And this is gonna go in a 400-degree oven until it's blistered and the potatoes and the carrots are cooked through, and we can immersion blend it down. That would be a beautiful salad too. I forgot we were gonna make a whipped pumpkin ricotta. Woo! So while I was cleaning up, I went ahead and dry roasted some walnuts, and we're gonna put this together. So the recipe I'm going based off of wanted it to be feta, but I've done a whipped ricotta before, and so it is really, really good. So I have one 15-ounce ricotta, and I'm going to add 5.3 ounces of Greek yogurt. Oh wait, this one has a little absorber in it. So it's supposed to be 8 ounces of feta, and to that we would do 1 cup, I believe, of pumpkin. So what I'm gonna do is take this pumpkin, I'm just gonna get the seeds and the center out of it. That'll go to the chickens. They love pumpkin. And then the rest of this is gonna get whipped in here. 1 to 2 tablespoons of honey. So that should be plenty. Dry thyme. Salt. And pepper. Well, it looks really beautiful. That's delicious. It doesn't need more pumpkin. I have this pretty pumpkin dish. We'll put a lid on it. But I think the wideness of this dish is gonna work so that I can sprinkle the honey and the thyme and the walnuts on top. We'll use this as the appetizer as well as a little topping on the butternut squash pasta. Let me get that in there. Okay, I'm gonna put a little chop on the walnuts. So the walnuts with the sage and the bacon is one of my favorite combinations. And so that's why I thought kind of combine some of my favorite things, even though they're totally separate recipes. So that the honey wasn't so thick. And we're just gonna do a little drizzle. Perfect. Okay, we'll put the little pumpkin lid on. And then we're gonna let this okay, we're gonna let that refrigerate. How cute is that for the appetizer? Let's make the soup. I have 2 jars of this chicken bone broth, my immersion blender, and all of these absolutely beautiful. Look at that. Garden fresh veggies. We'll start with one. Now you can make this as chunky or as smooth as you want. We will probably do it pretty smooth and top it with the parsley and do some fresh croutons. You can always run a soup through a sieve if you want. It is lovely. It is thick. I can't even figure out which vegetable it is I'm getting. Like, what is that? No. It doesn't need salt. It doesn't need pepper. It could use a little red pepper flake. I think that would make it lovely. If I cook it for just 5-10 minutes or so in that broth, that's like everything I worked for in a bowl. Like all of those beautiful vegetables and everything that I grew. I think I get a little garlic, a little onion, the tomato for sure. I get a bit of sweetness, whether that's the carrots or the squash. Get a little celery note. Like it actually, the flavors come through. But that is a pretty fantastic vegetable soup, and that is one of the things that, as it pertains to my health, the reason we moved to Alaska was to kind of like grow and produce and raise and hunt and fish and process our own food. And I just felt like there could be so much health gained from that. So not only the physical labor of going out and doing these things, the happiness and joy that it brings, but also having so much control over the food that goes into your body has been some of the things I contribute my health to. Getting healthy actually required literally moving to Alaska and putting my hands in the earth and bringing forth from it what I could learn and grow. And I'm just incredibly blessed. Moments like this are so satisfying. And I know that there's many that would just absolutely give anything to live this life here and be able to do these things, their health has failed to the point they can't, and none of that is lost on me. I'm trying to live in the moment. I gave myself some time to let my mental state rest and find a peace within the family and doing the things that I wanted to be spending my time in the garden and the yard and the house and the kitchen. And I think letting your soul rest as well as your mind, and how much you're consuming, you know, you're even consuming what I'm feeding you today and the things I'm saying and all of that. And I just, you know, I'm trying to be really cautious of what I'm putting in my body, my heart, my soul, my mind. And it's moments like this that are just incredibly satisfying. And then to have the healthy results on paper that say, you know, you're doing the right things, you're growing, you're healing. Even as I grow older, I'm healing. That is just absolutely, it is full circle for sure. So I'm gonna just let this steep for just a little bit. I'm gonna sweep and mop. I'm gonna mop my way out the door and then go do a bunch of animal chores while I wait on my family to get home. I'm gonna make quick croutons. I just took half of one of the loaves of bread and I'm dicing it up. Let me see. So much flavor. I'm gonna do a little oil. A little salt. Pepper. And I'm gonna put it in a really low oven, like 275, until it completely dries out the bread, because we want them to soak up the soup. And for those who don't like butternut squash at our house, these are some Costco meatballs, some home canned marinara. You could buy store-bought. So 2 jars of this. And there we go. No effort from me. That one. I just grated the cheese. Well, I did make the pasta sauce and can it myself. So I'm just gonna let those start defrosting at room temperature, and all this will go in the oven. I'll just cover it. Let's see how the apple turns. Oh, perfect. It's nice and firm. Lovely. Quality control. The caramel made the crispy, crunchiest bottom. That is way better than I thought it was gonna be. Let's drizzle a little more caramel. I'm not very good at the drizzle thing. Beautiful. Look at that. I just figured out what the sensation was when I bit into that. It is almost like a toffeed or carameled apple, but the apple texture is that of an apple pie. So you have that crisp crunch of like toffee, caramel, apple, and then kind of the smoothness of a pie. And then the crust is such a mild, mellow flavor that's not really competing with the apple and the caramel, but because there isn't a ton of caramel, like we didn't even use a whole jar of caramel in that, it is not overwhelming either. The little bit of cinnamon, the little bit of nutmeg, it's one of the better bars that I have made in a really long time. All of the recipes that I have used today will be linked in the show notes or the description below the video. So if you want to go to the links and actually lead you to the recipes on Pinterest, and you can make these things for yourself. But those were lovely. Those were much, much better than I expected them to actually be. And the fact I had all those ingredients on hand in the house made for a wonderful small, you know, it's not a big fat bar. It didn't have like a bunch of lift because there wasn't like baking soda or baking powder in the flour making it kind of like puff up. Instead, it's like this crispy toffee type crust. It's lovely. My family is starting to roll in. Cody and Aaron got here a little bit early. They're having a rest. Caleb and Destiny just pulled in the driveway, and Wyatt is on the road home. I've set the table. We have not had a table for, I think, over a year now. This is Cody's. It was after she moved back home. So they brought it in last night, and I think it's gonna be wonderful. We're gonna have our first family dinner at the table. So I've set it with, we have our beautiful appetizer of the whipped ricotta. I toasted one of the breads. We have some parma on the table, napkins and silverware, a little bit of pepper, the croutons. Look at that. They are so crunchy. And the first thing Cody did was walk in and rip a piece of bread off, dip it in the soup, and tell me that the soup tastes fantastic. So we're gonna pop that in just a minute. I'm gonna pop our pasta in the oven. Let's take a look at Aaron. Oh, lovely. The meatballs, the cheese. Ow. Well, that was a beautiful family dinner. We have everything cleaned up. I'll put away the clean dishes in the morning. I'm just gonna let them air dry for tonight. It was wonderful to spend time with family, to hear the laughter, to sit around the table, to enjoy our time. Everyone's moseyed off to do their own thing the rest of the evening. Caleb has to work tomorrow. Wyatt has to work, even though it's the weekend. And with that, in closing, I wanted to say something in particular. I hope that today inspires many of you to just make moves forward, to embrace a healthy lifestyle, whatever that looks like for you, whatever is working. It has taken years for me to finally have those healthy test results that I so anxiously waited for. And now that I have them, I really, really want you to experience that. Those of you that are suffering, those of you that are trying, those of you that are giving your all every single day to try and just do things better. I hope you're encouraged to just take one step. This was not an overnight. This wasn't a 30-day fix. This wasn't even a 1-year journey. It has been years that I have been fighting to gain my health back, and I still have a road in front of me. I am so happy and pleased that with all of that and getting a test result that I never expected, because you just get used to the bad news, I'm still impressed that the most important thing to me is this: family around the dinner table, hearing my children talk, being with my husband, being with the dogs, the animals, the homestead. All of those things carry so much more value to me than they even did previously. So with that, I hope that you are blessed. I hope that you are encouraged. And if you were encouraged, please hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you'll get notifications and then you don't miss anything we post on this homestead. I hope you're inspired to go make a full meal, even if the health journey doesn't matter at all. I hope we inspired you to do something fantastic in your own life. Give a hug to someone you love. And with that, I hope to see you in the next video. Bye for now.